Once upon a time, a long time ago, the community inside Raid actually got to build a champion in a way, and that's who we're going to be talking about today. It, of course, is Vaultkeeper Wixwell. This guy, if you're unfamiliar, was a fusion that we had, and the community actually got to vote on what each of his skills did, and I think we collectively came up with a pretty damn good champion. So I'm going to be doing a little showcase or a guide on him here today. Let's go ahead. Let's hop into his kit and see what he's about. Now, he is almost directly just a support champion. You're not going to be getting large amounts of damage out of him, so I'm not necessarily going to talk about multipliers or anything like that. If it's something you're curious about, you can, of course, find the multipliers on either a Yumilove or the Hell Hades website there, of course. Now, additionally, I have also gone outside in the past 6 months, and I have actually touched grass in the past 6 months as well, so I'm not necessarily going to be talking about his use inside the Hydra because I never spent the time to build an infinity comp with the Wixwell teams, so I wasn't terribly perturbed when the nerf or the rework happened there as well. I know some of you guys that dwell a little bit more in Hydra might be a bit upset about that, so you'll probably be wondering why there's no mention of it in this video. That being said, let's hop into it. A1 attacks one enemy 2 times, each hit having a 60% chance of placing a provoke. If the target is a boss, the chance increases to a 100% chance. This is absolutely fantastic. Damage is, of course, also based on defense, so the more you build him to survive, the more damage he is going to do. Still, having a 60% 2 times hitter chance of a provoke on a regular champion is very strong, and of course a 2 times hitter 100% chance against a boss is absolutely incredible. A2 attacks all enemies, 100% chance placing a decreased attack for 2 turns, also increases the duration of all ally buffs by 1 turn, then increases the value of all shields, excuse me, on all allies. The value of each shield is increased proportional to the total number of buffs which had their duration increased. And then, of course, this does also come with the damage based on defense. And finally, we have 2 intercept stacks on a target ally, and then also places an increased defense and a shield on all allies for 2 turns. The value of the shield is proportional to this champion's defense. Overall, you're going to want to build this guy for defense, and that's even further hinted at by the fact that he has a 28% defense in all battle aura. Absolutely fantastic kit here. We do also have a passive, so at the start of each round, he's going to place a counterattack on himself for 1 turn, and the buff cannot be removed. At the end of his turn, he places a counterattack buff on himself for 1 turn. What does that mean? Simply put, this guy just always has a counterattack on him. It never comes off, which is absolutely fantastic. And then these intercept stacks, essentially what that does is it goes onto a targeted ally. Intercept is going to essentially block 1 application of any sort of a crowd control debuff. So for example, stun, sleep, freeze, fear, true fear, all that sort of stuff, or polymorph specifically, which is important. So that gives you essentially 2 stacks of immunity to any sort of a CC debuff. In terms of masteries, I do have them built out fairly basic for a PvE champion. We have counterattack masteries here for obvious reasons, and then we do also come down to War Master as well there, just because I want a little bit more damage out of him. Now, usually in these champion showcases or spotlights, I essentially go ahead and just put, you know, the best gear I have on my account on them, so you can kind of get an idea of what they're like. However, I left his gear perfectly alone, and I want to talk about this champion for a moment. So this champion was extremely crucial for use inside, you know, for example, Hydra for a period, right? For especially the whales and, you know, other players who wanted to build out teams that were cheesing the system a little bit, to say the least, and then Plarium has redone that. So considering I never used him there, he certainly had less use case on my account than a lot of other people's. I also never built an infinity composition for the classic Demon Lord clan boss, so he has even less use than most people's. And the reason for that is I spent a lot of time, probably upwards of like 12 hours overall, just really critiquing and tuning my clan boss team, and I have it working full auto every single affinity, every single level of clan boss with the same team. I do have a video of it on my channel if that's something you're interested in. So I didn't see the need to spend all that time to really replace it when I had something that was already working. Because of that, there are only 2 areas that this guy sees use on my account, and I think it's important to call these things out as a late game player who's kind of showcasing these champions for everybody else. If you're not going to get use out of him inside these 2 areas, you might want to hold off on building him, and those 2 areas are going to be Hydra. So I do use him inside one of my Hydra compositions to attack generally either the normal or the rather, this is Demon Lord, what am I doing? Excuse me. I use him to attack the brutal or the hard Hydra difficulty, depending on what I'm doing that week. And then the only other place he ever gets use on my account is actually going to be fighting the Magma Dragon inside the Doom Tower. I'll go ahead and show you how this particular team looks. So essentially on wave 3, all he's doing is his A1. Now he should actually have his A3 turned off here because we just want that decreased attack, and then we want the A1 coming in for the provokes. The Magma Dragon is one of the few enemies that can be provoked inside the game, especially at a boss level, so this essentially just makes it so much easier. This entire team composition just revolves around bringing in 4 damage dealers to try and get through these waves as quick as possible, and then of course bringing in our Wixwell as well, just to control the boss, right? So there's certainly faster team compositions that can do it, but this is the team that works for my account. This is the team that I just kind of threw everybody in there, and it works. So we're not going to question it too much. We're not going to fix what's not broken, right? So that being said as well, I don't actually end up farming this particular boss all that much, so any sort of extra points or anything like that, or not points per se, but any sort of extra optimization I apply to this boss is really just going to be kind of a waste, because I really only just fight him when it comes around on the rotation, and then I'm farming a more useful boss inside the Doom Tower, right? So this particular rotation I'm farming the Griffin, so that I can essentially just go out and get some Guardian gear, which will be quite nice. Now you can see we're just kind of slogging through this here, right? We're going to be at about a minute. There's definitely better boss killing champions that you could implement here as well. So you could, of course, bring in somebody like a Newt. When I made this particular team, I didn't actually have my Newt built yet, so that's certainly an option as well. From the gear sets, you can certainly see that Wixwell is healing himself a little bit there too, which is quite nice. He is always the target of the Magma Dragon in this particular composition, which means that he is going to always be getting that counterattack, which means he has a far higher chance of placing those provokes, right? Because if he doesn't place it on his regular A1, he has the chance to place it on his counterattack and vice versa. So this Magma Dragon, unfortunately, is just never going to get a turn to use any of his skills, which is a shame for him, but kind of a win for us, certainly. So, and this is very scary because Wixwell is actually getting pretty low, but I've never had this composition fail before. We do also have a Smite debuff coming in there, which, it is what it is. That's not really going to do a whole lot, though, because we can't get Brimstone on this fight because he's not actually using any sort of active skills. They're all just A1s, so it's not the most useful blessing, certainly, but I do use my Rathalos inside the Cursed City to fight Amius there, so that's why he has the that particular blessing, right? So I need to do a Rathalos showcase at some point as well, I suppose. As you can see, we're about 2 minutes and 15 seconds in there. I actually just set a new PB as well, which is kind of funny. So there you go. That's how the run looks. Now, let's go ahead and let's take a look at Wixwell here as well in terms of his gear and just how the stats are looking on this particular champion. These are the stats here: 55,000 HP, 4,900 defense, 259 speed, 417 resistance, and then 316 on the accuracy. Now, I don't need incredibly high accuracy for the areas where I use him, but I do want high resistance so I don't have to worry about any sort of nasty debuffs being landed on him. And then, of course, like I mentioned, I do have him built inside the Immortal there as well. So he is just getting some additional heals coming in off of that. And then for blessings, I would actually recommend Faultless Defense unless you have him 5 or 6 star Awaken. If you have him 5 or 6 star Awaken, Cruelty is going to be a very solid way to go. Or really, for him, you can pretty much throw any sort of blessing on there that you want. This guy gets the job done. Now, inside Hydra, of course, he is very useful for those intercept stacks. And then, of course, his A1 Provoke is useful for the head that just goes ahead and cleanses everybody else. I forgot the head's name, but let's go ahead and see if we can't take a look here. It'll be this head here, the Head of Decay. He's the one that can be provoked. And then you can essentially stop him from doing the AoE cleanse, which is very annoying to try and go against. So I get a lot of use out of him there, certainly, especially with these new changes to the Hydra where sometimes you just can't kill those heads when they come back, right, because of the block damage. So he can definitely help you out, but again, unless you're going to be using him in those two specific areas, I'd recommend just kind of chilling out with the amount of resources that you put into this champion. It certainly should be a question that crosses your mind if you want to invest in him. That being said, thank you guys all so much for watching the video, and I'll see you next time.